Yeah, but you're all dark and twisty inside. Dark and twisty.
We are resuming the deposition. Time is 3:48 p.m. Counselor?
After you got the guns, did Andrew Golden relock the padlock on the cable, or was it left unlocked? Do you remember?
I could not recall, sir.
All right, I'm going to have to ask you some questions now, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but we have to ask some difficult questions.
Go ahead, sir.
You grew up in a home where your mother and your father were divorced, is that correct?
Correct, sir, yes.
How old were you when they divorced?
I'd say I was around 8 when they...
Do you remember what grade you were in?
I was in, I think I was in third when it was all finalized.
And where were you living? What state were you living in at the time?
When the divorce occurred?
Yes.
In Minnesota, sir.
How would you describe your mother and father's relationship before the divorce? Was it a lot of screaming and yelling and fighting, or was it calm and just an agreement to disagree, or was it rather tumultuous?
You might want to define tumultuous.
Or was it a lot of anger and problems?
Sometimes it was calm, sometimes they'd fight over it. Sometimes my dad would, yell and scream, stuff like that.
Was there ever any physical violence between your dad and your mom?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did your father or your mother ever use any physical violence towards you?
No, sir.
When your mother learned of your self-mutilation, what did she do?
She had sit down and asked me what I'd done first, and I told her. She asked me why, and I told her I didn't know why.
What else happened after that in reference to that?
I'm not really sure after that, sir.
Can you tell me about when that occurred in reference to the shooting? How long before the shooting that occurred?
That's probably about...
Mr. McDaniel, do you mean his mother's knowledge of the mutilation or the mutilation itself?
How long before the shooting did the self-mutilation events occur?
Probably 2 months.
And by that time, you had been suspended or put in school suspension several times, correct?
Throughout my life, yes, sir.
Define several, please.
You mentioned that throughout your life you had in-school suspensions or suspensions. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Tell me the disciplinary problems you had that you remember throughout your lifetime in school, from grade school, from kindergarten on.
I didn't have any problems 1 through 4th, sir. I was a good kid. I made almost straight A's. Then my parents got divorced and I had moved to Kentucky, and that was a rough transition for me, because it was the middle of the school year. It was Christmas break, sir, and I had started going to a new school. I had adjusted well, and my mama met my stepdaddy, and my mom had got pregnant, and then after a week after she had my little sister, we had moved to Arkansas with my stepfather.
Where in Kentucky did you live?
In London, sir.
What?
London.
What school did you go to?
I don't recall.
Did you have any school discipline problems in Kentucky, where there were suspensions or notes sent home or different issues
No,
like
sir.
that? Then you came to Arkansas where your stepmother had married your stepdad, or your mother had married your stepdad.
Correct.
When did you first learn that your stepdad was on parole for federal drug violations? Before they were married or after?
Really not sure.
But you knew that when you came to Arkansas.
I'm not for sure if I did or not, sir.
You learned it before the shooting incident.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I did.
Now, had your dad ever tied you to a tree?
You mean his natural father or
Natural
his
father.
stepfather?
Natural father. Had your natural father ever tied you to a tree?
Not that I know of.
Were you ever the subject of an investigation for sexual abuse in Minnesota, where you were accused or potentially accused, or an accusation was made that you may have sexually abused someone else?
Yes, sir, I was.
When was that?
I do believe in 97, sir.
Okay. And did police or social workers come to talk to you or your parents about that?
No, sir. I was brought to them by my father.
Okay. And so then your father knew that you had perhaps done so or accused of doing some sexual abuse on another person. Is that correct?
After a report was filed, they had contacted my father and told him that they'd like to speak with me in Austin, Minnesota. And that's why I had to go up to Austin to make a report, sir.
Okay. So some authorities contacted your father
Yes, sir.
and notified him that a complaint had been lodged against you for committing some sort of sexual abuse act on another person. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So then in response to the request of the authorities, your dad took you to Austin, Minnesota for questioning.
Yes, sir.
All right. Were you ever charged with that event?
Sir, my understanding, the charges have been dropped.
Okay. Were they dropped because you didn't do it, or were they dropped because the family of the victim did not want to pursue it?
I'm not for sure.
Okay. You don't know why they were dropped.
Right, correct. I don't know why they were dropped.
But your dad knew that you had sexually abused someone in Minnesota, correct?
It's so-called sexual
Allegedly
Allegedly,
sexually
yes.
abused. I'm going to object to the form of the question.
Did you have sexual contact with another person in Minnesota that brought about an investigation by the authorities in Austin, Minnesota? I'm not going to ask the specifics of who did what.
I'm going to object to that question and instruct the witness not to answer based on his Fifth Amendment privilege.
But at any rate, to your knowledge, did your mother ever learn of that incident?
Yes, sir, she did.
Did you acknowledge to either your mother or your father that you had done something wrong?
I didn't talk about it, sir, no.
Did they press you to get you to explain to them the details of what had happened so they could decide whether you had done something wrong or not?
My dad had told me he knew that I'd done it.
Your dad told you he knew that you had done it.
And I told him he was lying.
Was that the end of it?
No, sir.
What happened next?
That's when I was brought on before the court in Austin, sir.
Was it suggested that you get any psychological counseling or treatment following that event?
Yes, sir, it was.
And who told you to get psychological treatment or counseling?
The court had ordered that I be evaluated.
And was that what court?
Minnesota, sir. They had transferred the evaluation down to Arkansas since I was residing in Arkansas at the time.
Okay. And so were you psychologically evaluated by someone in Minnesota?
I don't remember, sir.
Were you tested? Did you take some psychological tests?
I'm saying I don't remember if it was in Minnesota, sir.
Oh, Minnesota or Arkansas?
In Arkansas, yes, sir, I was.
All right. And where was that done in Arkansas, do you know?
In Jonesboro.
Was it done at a government office or a private psychologist or psychiatrist's office, or do you know?
Sir, I think it was private, but I'm not for sure.
Do you remember?
Okay.
Just a minute. Do you remember the name of the doctor?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Well, who was the doctor?
Dr. Prince was his name, sir.
Dr. Michael Prince?
I don't know the first name.
Okay. And had you ever had any other psychological counseling or testing other than that episode with Dr. Prince?
I had counseling when I was in 3rd grade because of my parents' divorce. But that's it.
Adjustment counseling because of the adjustment?
I don't know what it was called, sir.
Okay. At any time, did a school counselor, or anyone else recommend to you to get counseling?
A school official? Not that I know of, sir.
Did anyone at school recommend to either of your parents that you get counseling to you?
I'm not for sure.
Were you aware that Andrew Golden had allegedly told another individual about your plot or plan to conduct the shooting episode? Jonathan Woodard?
Sir, I had heard, it wasn't from Andrew, but I had heard somebody talking about it. It wasn't by him that I was told, though.
It wasn't by Andrew?
No, sir, it wasn't.
Did you hear that Jonathan Woodard had talked about the planned shooting episode?
Yes, sir, I'd heard that.
Who did you hear that from?
I don't recall.
Did you confront or talk to Jonathan Woodard to ask him, why are you saying this, or anything like that?
No, sir, I didn't. Not that I remember, sir.
Who else knew about the planned shooting episode?
Nobody but me and Andrew.
So then your plan, word got out and it got back to you before the plan was ever carried out, correct?
Correct, yes.
Were you ever informed that that plan was revealed to any school or police officials before the shooting actually took place?
Say again, please, sir.
Did you learn that Jonathan Woodard had told somebody at the school, a principal or a counselor or a teacher, about your plan?
I was told that Mr. Jonathan Woodard had told a counselor, yes, sir.
And did the counselor ever approach you to say what's going on?
Not that I remember, sir.
Did
They may
anybody from the school confront you to say, what is this we're hearing about this plan that Jonathan Woodard is talking about, or anything of that effect?
No, sir, because my name wasn't mentioned in it.
How did someone know to tell you about it, about the plan that Woodard was talking about, if your name wasn't mentioned? Who told you?
He didn't come to me and tell me that what had happened. I had overheard him talking to somebody else about it, and I had asked the person what you're talking about, and he had said that somebody had mentioned that Jonathan Woodard had overheard Andrew saying something about shooting the school. He didn't come to me and say, hey, this is what I heard. I had asked him what he was talking about.
So you overheard him talking to someone else saying that Andrew had planned on doing a shooting at the school, and you asked him what he was talking about?
I had heard a person say that, yes, sir.
Okay. Why did you do this? Bottom line question. Why did you shoot these people?
Honestly, guys, sir, I do not know. I haven't found that answer out yet.
Why did you shoot Shannon Wright twice with a 30-06 through a scope?
Sir, like I said at the very beginning, I didn't mean to. I didn't want to shoot nobody, sir.
But when you say you didn't mean to, when you're looking through a telescopic sight that I think is a 7-power sight, and you've got a human being in the crosshairs, and you pull the trigger of a 30-06, you know that's going to kill him or hurt him seriously.
Yes,
You
sir,
know
I
that.
do. Yes, sir, I do know that.
Why'd you do it?
I don't know, sir.
Who were you angry at that would push you to this kind of conduct?
There wasn't necessarily nobody I was angry at, sir.
Were you just angry at the world in general?
In a sense, probably more angry at myself.
Had Miss Wright done anything to you that you felt that she deserved to die?
No, sir. Miss Wright was a very good woman.
Had any of these children who were shot, even the ones that were wounded, but especially the ones who were killed, to your knowledge, had any of those children done anything to you or Andrew Golden that you felt, or he felt, or he told you that he felt justified in killing him?
No, sir.
Were
Never.
were the kids good kids?
Yes, sir, they were.
Has Andrew Golden ever told you after the fact why he did what he did?
No, sir.
Have you had a chance to talk to him after you were apprehended until today about what happened, why you did it, and what you're going to do about it?
Me and him don't talk about that, sir.
Do you and he see each other at the Alexander unit?
Yes, sir, we do.
Do you get a chance to talk privately, one to the other?
Not necessarily, sir.
You get to spend time together?
Every now and then.
When you were housed at the Craighead County Jail, did you have a chance to talk to him?
No, sir.
Do you agree that you should not sell or attempt to sell any story, movie rights, book rights, or profit from this tragedy in any way? Do you agree with that?
Sir, the only way that I wouldn't agree with it if I give it to Mr. Wright over there and the rest of the victims that I hurt, and give the money that if I were to profit to them.
When Andrew Golden discussed this plan of shooting people at the school, what went through your mind as to how can he be saying something like that?
Honestly, I thought he was crazy at first, but then, like when I was telling the story of how it happened, like I said, I had struggled with myself to say yes or no, whatever way, because when I first heard about it, I thought that he was crazy. Not necessarily him, but the idea of it.
You thought the idea was crazy?
Yes, sir, I did.
Because you knew what death was at that point.
Yes, sir.
It's not one of those incidents where you didn't have an appreciation of what somebody being dead was, because you knew what being dead was, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you knew that if you shot an animal with a rifle, it was dead.
Yes, sir.
If you shot a person with a rifle, they might be dead.
Yes, sir.
And that would inflict serious pain, not just on the person shot, but their loved ones.
Very much so, yes, sir.
Did you say on the school bus, I've got a lot of killing to do before this thing happened?
No, sir, I did not.
Sure.
I'm positive.
What was the plan on where you were going to go if you got away? Where were you going to go or what were you going to do?
Really, the whole plan was just to get away to begin with. You know, it was just to get away from the world and all the struggles and the problems that I had with the world.
Your struggles and problems with the world were very obvious, weren't they?
Yes, sir.
You were a troubled child, weren't you?
Not necessarily troubled. I wouldn't say a troubled child, sir. I say I had problems, but not troubled.
You had problems, and your mom and your dad knew you had
I'm
problems.
going to object to that. Instruct the witness not to answer based on his Fifth Amendment right.
Hey, Mike, let me speak to you for a second, please.
Mr. Buchanan, I'm going to withdraw that objection if you'll allow the witness to give a full answer. So I may ask you to let him explicate.
Could you please repeat the question, sir?
Your mother and your dad knew that you had had problems in your childhood.
Yes, sir, they knew, and they had told me that I needed help. I just refused it, sir.
Your parents had told you several times you needed to get help, didn't they?
They had offered it to me, and I just wouldn't take it, sir.
What type of help did they offer you?
They had tried to sit down and talk with me, and I wouldn't talk with them. They offered on doctors, and I'd cuss them out and walk out the office on them. Stuff like that, sir.
And would you cuss out your parents too?
Not very often, no, sir.
But you did some.
Once in a blue moon.
Okay. So your parents...
Mr. McDaniel, can we clarify that answer? He said you'd cuss out and walk out of the office. Were you
I was referring to the
doctors?
doctor, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
your parents encouraged you to go to a doctor to get some help for your problems, and that'd be psychological or adjustment problems, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
And then when they would take you to a doctor, you'd cuss the doctor out and leave without getting any help, right?
Most of the time, yes, sir.
And then they would ask you to get help again, and sometimes you'd cuss the parents out.
Sometimes, yes, sir.
And the bottom line was, even though they kept telling you you needed to get help, they never actually got you the help, and you didn't get the help, correct?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence.
So they had offered to help, I just didn't receive it.
And they didn't force you to get it, did they?
At one time, my mama told me, she said, Mitchell, I know you need help. And I told her I didn't want it. I refused to cooperate with her.
What'd she do when you refused? Drop it?
No, she'd ground me.
She didn't get you the psychological help that she knew you needed, right?
She tried, sir. I wouldn't accept it.
Did you have access to the internet at your home?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you watch television, VCR movies?
Yes, sir, I have.
What type of VCR movies would you watch at home?
Every kind, sir. Yes, sir.
Action movies?
Yes, sir.
The R-rated Sylvester Stallone shoot-up-everybody type movies?
Yes, sir, them too.
And did you watch a lot of the action-type movies where people would be shot and killed?
Some, yes.
Did you ever play any video games where individuals were killed or shot in video games?
No shooting games, but fighting games, yes.
Did you subscribe to magazines at your home?
No, sir. I didn't.
Did your family have magazines at home?
My mother has subscribed to hot rod magazines, car magazines, sir.
Did you write Colby Johnson letters while you've been in custody?
Kobe who, sir?
Colby Johnson.
I don't know a Kobe Johnson, sir.
Do you know a kid named Colby?
I know a Kobe Thompson. Yeah, I know a Kobe Thompson.
Colby Thompson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you write Colby Thompson letters while you were in custody?
Once.
Do you remember what the letter said?
I'm not for sure. I can tell you Kobe's not from Jonesboro.
Where does Colby live?
He's from Paragould, sir.
Do you still have his address? Do you still correspond with him?
No, sir, I lost contact with him.
Do you don't know how to reach him?
No, sir, I don't.
Did you write Colby a letter do you know a Colby Brooks?
Yes, sir, I do.
Who is Colby Brooks?
He was a friend of mine.
Did you ever write Colby Brooks any letters? while
Yes,
you were
sir,
in
I
custody?
have. Many.
Okay. And who are his parents, do you know?
I'm not for sure of their names, sir.
Do you know if he's related to any of the kids that were shot at Westside?
I do believe that he was Natalie Brooks' cousin, but I'm not for certain for that, sir.
Did you write some child named Colby a letter admitting that you did the shooting?
Yes, sir.
Did you write some child named Colby a letter admitting that you like to listen to rap music and that because of the shooting you would not get to go to a prom or have sex or kiss a girl for the next 7 or 8 years?
Yes, sir, I did write that.
And you concluded that by saying, and why?
Yes, sir, I did.
Almost a rhetorical question. Why? Right?
Objection.
Okay.
I'm not sure
I'll
that
refer-
the
I'll
witness
refer.
understands the meaning of rhetorical.
Tell me what you meant when you said, I won't get to go to a prom, never have sex or kiss a girl for 7 or almost 8 years, and why? What did you mean by the and why?
And why I was referring to myself that I knew I was wrong for what I done. I knew that I took innocent people's lives for no reason of my understanding, and I was referring to myself, and that was a way of me saying I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. Did you say in a letter to Colby that I have the same pain y'all have?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you say in a letter to Colby, I lost friends like y'all did. The only difference is I was the one doing the killing.
Yes, sir, I did. May I be allowed to explain myself?
Yes, sir.
The reason I wrote that, I had said the only difference is I was the one they lost their lives by my hands. That's what I meant by that. It wasn't no disrespectful thing. I meant by that, sir, just to clarify myself.
In fact, the people lost their lives not just by your hand, but also by the hand of Andrew Golden, correct?
Yes, sir.
What size shoe did you wear that year?
9.5, 10, sir.
Do you know what size shoe Andrew wore?
No, sir.
Had you ever killed a cat before March 1998?
No, sir.
Had you killed any animals just to be killing them?
Objection. Vague. What is the phrase, just to be killing them?
I'll rephrase it. Had
The
you
witness
ever,
has testified that he went squirrel hunting, I believe.
other than a hunting exercise,
No, sir.
have you ever killed any animals?
No, sir.
Have you ever shot target practice with a rifle, shotgun, or pistol?
Yes, sir, I have.
Tell me about your experience in target practicing.
Really, sir, it ain't much to say. I mean, I shot, to see where how my accuracy was
And when did you do that?
all through my life.
And did you do that with the knowledge of your parents?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you ever do it in their presence?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what type guns did you use?
I used my pellet gun, as I was referring to in my statement in the journal, and I've used my 20 gauge also,
A pellet gun is like a BB rifle, but
Yes,
more
sir.
power.
in a sense, yes, sir.
And you aim it like you do a regular rifle and pull the trigger and a projectile goes out and hits the target, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair that if you can shoot a pellet gun accurately, you can shoot a real rifle accurately?
In some sense, yes.
Okay. Did you tell a young girl named Vanover that you had a lot of killing to do on the bus? I want to see if you...
Objection asked and answered.
Go ahead.
No, sir, I did not.
Did you listen to music at school against the handbook rules?
Yes, sir, I have.
Did you get in trouble for that?
The teacher asked me to please take my headphones off.
And did you repeatedly listen to the music even after you've been told time and again? not
No,
to?
sir, I took it off.
After you were in jail, did you destroy some of the property at the Craighead County Jail?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you destroy?
They said I destroyed the sprinkler. I can't say I destroyed it. I set it off.
Did you kick the sprinkler?
No, I hit it with my shoes, sir.
Have you ever been the victim of sexual abuse?
Objection. Withdraw my objection.
Have you ever been the victim of sexual abuse?
Yes, sir, I have.
Was that sexual abuse made known to your parents?
After the shooting incident, yes, it was.
How old were you when you were the victim of sexual abuse?
I was probably around 8 or 9, sir. 7 or 8 or 9, one of those 3 years.
Was the person who perpetrated the sexual abuse a family member?
No, sir, it was not.
Did you obtain any help or counseling for that?
No, sir. I didn't tell nobody until after the shooting incident, sir. What did
Andrew Golden tell you about his grandfather, Douglas Golden?
Sir, all he had told me is that he was a game warden.
Did he tell you anything about his hunting experiences with his grandfather?
No, sir.
Did he tell you about his shooting experiences with his grandfather?
No, sir.
He did tell you that he knew where he could get guns, and that was at his grandfather's house?
Yes, sir, he did say that.
Then you went to the grandfather's house and you did get the guns?
Correct.
There had been times that other children had been told not to play with you, correct?
Sir, I couldn't honestly say that.
Well, did other kids tell you that, hey, I'm not supposed to play with you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Had you ever talked about suicide before March 24 of 1998?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
Once that somebody heard about it
And when and where was that?
in Minnesota.
And did they tell your parents?
Not until after the shooting.
Who found out about it in Minnesota? Who heard about it in Minnesota?
Oh boy, who I used to hang around with, sir.
Who was that?
His name was Andrew O'Rourke.
Andrew what?
O'Rourke, sir.
O'Rourke?
Yes, sir.
Did you get into fights when you were a youngster?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you frequently get into fights when you were in grade school?
Objection defined frequently.
I'll rephrase it. How often would you get into fights before March of 1998?
And before the 5th grade, sir, only time I fought was to defend myself. When I was in London, Kentucky, I used to get jumped a lot by some 9th graders, sir.
Okay. After you came to Arkansas, you got in a lot of fights, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I did.
And were you the aggressor in some of those fights? Did you start some of those fights?
Some of those fights, yes, sir, I did.
Huh?
Yes, sir, I did in some of them.
Okay. And
Just a moment. Mr. Gideon.
in the 7th grade, how many fights do you think you had while you were in the 7th grade before the shooting?
A couple, sir.
And when you would have these fights, would they be on the school grounds or somewhere else?
Both, sir.
And were your parents notified that you're fighting at school?
No, sir.
Did your parents learn about your fights, or your mom or your dad?
If I tell my little brother about it and they overhear me, yes.
So they knew from whatever sources that you'd had several fights.
Some, yes, sir.
Did you ever brag about smoking heroin and marijuana?
I know, sir, I'm not aware you can smoke marijuana, sir. Or heroin, sir.
Did you ever brag that you had used heroin?
I told some people I know about heroin.
Did you ever tell anybody you had used heroin?
I don't think I have.
Did you ever leave the try to say things so that you would leave the impression upon others that you had used heroin? Like trying to kind of be a big shot?
I could say so, yes. Yes, sir, I could say I did.
Okay. Did you tell other children you had used marijuana frequently?
I never used marijuana frequently, sir, and I can't recall that I said that.
To your knowledge, were you ever described by law enforcement officials as being a troubled child?
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. Lack of competency. Lack of foundation.
I'm asking you what he knew.
Sir, I don't know, I couldn't honestly say that, I'm not for sure.
Well, go ahead with what you were about to say when you said I was in.
I was in some trouble in Minnesota over a fight I got into.
When was that, and what was that trouble?
A boy had threatened me over some gang-related stuff, and I had told him that quit being a scaredy cat and come out in the street and said, because he was on his property when he said that, sir. And I had threatened him that I was gonna beat him up, and he had called the cops on me. And I was out playing with some friends of mine later on that night around 10 o'clock. That night when it was well after dark, and a police officer had rolled up on the lot we were playing football on, and everybody ran but me, and he had called my name out, so I stopped. And sir, he had asked me what's my problem with that kid I threatened, and I had told him he had threatened me.
Was this contact with the police communicated to your mother or your father?
Not that I'm aware of.
Had you had other contact with the police that you've not told me about?
No, sir, not that I remember.
Do you know whether or not the police ever went to your mother's home and a .357 Magnum was on the table when they got there?
Temporal,
Anytime.
Sir,
state, just a minute.
I'm sorry.
What state?
Anytime or any place are you aware that the police ever came to your mother's home when it was a .357 Magnum on the table?
This includes his residency in Minnesota, Kentucky.
Any time or place, yes.
Sir, I was aware that my mother used to own a .357, but it had went missing after we had moved to Kentucky, and I was told that a police officer had walked in my house in Arkansas and saw it on the table, which I know was not true because my stepfather can't be around guns, period. And my mother ain't that type of person to break law, so.
Were you aware that your father held a press conference in June of 1998 and made statements to the press about you after the shooting incident occurred? Were you aware of that?
Objection, stepfather and natural father.
That's a proper objection. Let me rephrase it. Were you aware that your father, Scott Johnson, had held a press conference on June 17, 1998 and made statements about you to the press?
Sir, could you tell me what he has said or what station it was on, sir?
Did your father, to your knowledge, ever make a statement to the press that he had sought to get you help over the past couple of years, that you were a troubled child, and he was not able to convince the authorities to get you help or something to that effect?
I'm not for sure if he said that or not, sir.
There's a fellow whose name is surfaced by the name of Tom Firth. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Yes, sir, it does.
Did Tom Firth ever actually represent you as a lawyer, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I thought he did, sir, yes.
Okay.
But may I clarify something?
Yes, sir.
During this the judicial proceedings, sir, I was court-appointed Mr. Bill Howard to be my attorney at law to represent me, and my father had hired Tom Firth, and I can't say that he was officially appointed to be my attorney also, so I can't say, but I know that my father had hired him, yes.
Do you know how it is your father got in touch with Tom Firth or vice versa to get him involved in the case?
Sir, no, I don't.
Have you given any interviews to anyone about what happened at the Westside shooting?
No, sir, I have not.
Who all have you told about what actually happened? Like you told us today what happened, besides your attorney, Mr. Roberts,
Objection.
or some other attorney.
Excuse me, I've got to object to that because if he answers that question fully and completely, he'll violate a gag order extant in another court of another sovereign.
I'll modify it. Other than to one of your attorneys or to officials connected with a federal court or in a proceeding related to a federal court, have you discussed the actual shooting event at Westside with anyone?
Sir, I've discussed it with my counselors who counsel me, sir. Yes, I have.
Who are your counselors and where are they?
I have, since I've been incarcerated to Alexander Youth Services, we are, I was assigned to a doctor by name Dr. T.J. Rainey, and he is my therapist while I stay there, while I'm at Alexander, and I've told him about it, sir.
Did the self-mutilation result in any scars?
Yes, sir, it has.
How many scars do you have on your body from self-mutilation?
6, I do believe.
Okay. Where are they located?
On my left arm, sir.
Excuse me one moment. Do you know if your mother was notified on the morning of March 24, or whether or not she became aware that the van was missing before the shooting took place?
Sir, could you please repeat the question?
Yes. To your knowledge, did your mother learn that the van was gone before the shooting took place?
I had told her that my father was going to take me to school, yes, sir.
And you asked her for the keys and she gave them to you.
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did she check or make any effort to check to see if what you were telling her was true?
Objection, ask and answer. The witness previously testified that he lied to his mother.
Object to speaking objections. To your knowledge, did your mother ever check to see if what you were telling her was true?
Not that I know of, sir.
Had you ever driven the van without authority before?
Objection, ask and answer.
My mother has asked me to drive the van down to the end of our driveway to shut off the water a couple times, but she knew about it, sir.
Did you ever drive the van by yourself without permission before?
No, sir, I have not.
Were you up on the night before the shooting, somewhere around midnight to 1 or 1:30 in the morning, rumbling about or doing things?
No, sir, I was in the bed asleep.
May I have one more? Pass the witness.
Why don't we take a break, let everybody get
That's fine. 5 minutes.
Please, thank you.
We're going to adjourn the deposition. The time is 4:29 p.m. We are back on the record. The time is 4:41 p.m. Counselor.
Thank you, sir.
Mitchell, my name is Randall Miller. I represent your mother, Gretchen Woodard,
Yes, sir.
and I just have a few questions to ask you about, pretty much about your relationship with your mother and how things were at home before this incident occurred. Prior to the shooting, how long had you lived at the home that you were at?
I'd say 2 years, I do believe, sir.
And during those 2 years, was your mother working outside the home?
No, sir.
So she was a stay-at-home mom.
Yes, sir.
And I think you had a brother and a sister that lived with you also.
Yes, sir.
What's their names?
Monty Johnson and Jesse Woodard, sir.
And then other than that, your stepfather also lived with you.
Yes, sir.
Did your mother love you?
Yes, sir, very much.
Did your mother try to provide a loving and caring home for you?
Always, sir.
Objection. Call for conclusion, speculation, assumption, not evidence.
Always, sir. Yes, sir.
In the morning, before you went to school, did your mother always make sure you got up and went to school?
Yes, sir, she did.
And on the day that this incident occurred, you made sure that your mother didn't know that you weren't going to school.
Correct.
You lied to her.
Yes, sir, I did.
You covered up where you were and where you were going.
Yes, sir.
Now, prior to that, I understand that you'd been in some fights.
Yes, sir, I was.
Did you tell your mother about those?
No, sir.
In fact, did you try to conceal those from her?
Yes, sir, I'm doing my best to.
And as far as some of the discipline problems or other problems that you had, did your mother try to help you deal with those?
Yes, sir, she did.
How did she do that?
She'd offer me advice herself. She'd take me to recommended doctors, and I wouldn't listen to them. I'd cuss them out and walk out on them. We'd get home, I wouldn't talk to my mother.
But your mother did try to sit down with you and talk to you and counsel you to do better.
Her best efforts, yes.
Objection. Calling for the conclusion and stating the conclusion.
Now, you were also asking some questions about being a victim of sexual abuse.
Yes, sir, I was.
When that incident occurred, were you residing with your mother?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you living with your mother or your grandmother?
We moved to my grandmother's house, and my mother had moved in with my grandmother.
You were living at your grandmother's house,
Yes, sir. It was my grandmother's house.
and no one there knew what had occurred.
No, sir.
And in fact, again, you didn't reveal that to anyone until after the shooting.
Correct.
Now, at your home, again, prior to the shooting, how many televisions did you have?
One, sir.
One for the whole household.
Yes, sir.
Where was it?
In the living room, sir.
And no computer.
No, sir.
Prior to the shooting, how were your grades at school?
A's and B's, sir, most of the time. I had a C in science my first 9 weeks of 7th grade, but I had pulled it up to an A, I do believe.
And what other activities were you involved in at school?
I played football 6th and 7th grade, and I made the basketball team in 7th grade, sir. And I was also in the choir at school.
And while you were at home and around your mother, did you ever make any threats of harming someone?
No, sir.
And not just of shooting someone, but making any threats of violence toward other people?
No, sir, not around my mother, no.
Try to be on your best behavior around her.
Yes, sir, I did.
Mitchell, is there anything that your mother could have done to have prevented this from occurring?
Objection. Calling for speculation and conclusion and assuming facts not in evidence.
No, sir, I didn't let my mother know that this was even entering my mind. I didn't leave no evidence at my house that anything like this were to occur.
In fact, even in thinking about this and the events leading up to it, did you really think that something was going to occur?
I figured in time, yes, sir.
I mean, did it seem real to you?
Yes, sir.
But you still don't know why you wanted to do it?
Why? No, sir, I don't know why it happened.
Now, in the events leading up to this shooting, did you act any different at home?
Not that I know of, no, sir.
In other words, your routine pretty much went on the same in the months leading up to this as it had for the years before this.
Yes, sir, pretty much.
No substantial change in your attitude.
Not much, no.
And Mitchell, are you sorry that this occurred?
Very much so. I regret it every day of my life. I pray every day for the victims. I hope and I pray that God bless them to help heal. Because I've lost, but not by no means, not by what they lost by. And I am sorry, by the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry.
And of course, you've also hurt your family.
Yes, sir. Not as much I hurt the victims, though.
No other questions?
Before the day of the shooting, did you ever met Andrew's grandfather, Doug Dolan?
No, sir.
Did you ever been to his home before you entered on this day by taking the crowbar or somebody taking the crowbar and breaking the window and breaking in?
No, sir. I've never been to his house, no. Before that.
No questions. No questions. A couple of follow-ups.
Just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Johnson, I represent you in a certain federal criminal proceeding, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're aware that I also represent your father as well as you in this civil proceeding, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I have just two questions. Did Scott Johnson, your father, do anything that caused you to do this shooting?
Object, calling for a conclusion and speculation, and asking him to assume facts not in evidence.
You may answer.
No, sir.
Do you have something you want to say to the people in this room?
Like I said before, I pray for y'all every day. I truly am sorry for what I done. And if I ever do find out why, I will let y'all know. However, that I am sorry. And I know I can't ever take it back. And a life is the most precious thing you can have. And I am sorry.
Mr. Johnson, you were asked some questions about your relationship with your mother. Did your mother keep up with you pretty closely?
Pretty closely, yes.
So then your mother must have known you were in the gang up in Minnesota.
No.
How can you be in a gang like the Crips and nobody know about it?
Objection. I don't think there's any testimony that it was in the gang. Said he associated with gang individuals.
Mike, I'm going to have to object now to speaking objection.
Objection. Object to the form. Assumes facts not in evidence.
Okay, that's fine. Speaking objections are inappropriate. Were you a member of the gang?
No, sir, I was
Did you
not.
hang out with people who were members of the gang?
I talked to some, yes.
And you were playing football at night, as I understand, one time when the police came up to talk to you?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did your mother know about your gang-related activities?
No, sir, she did not.
So you were doing things that would be very questionable in terms of good behavior, and your mother didn't know about them. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
And did you go to church when you moved to Jonesboro?
Yes, sir, I did.
Where'd you go?
I went to a Baptist church. I'm not sure the name of it, sir.
So then you knew this kind of conduct was totally unacceptable, and you did it anyway.
Yes, sir.
When I had to sit down, my knees hurting. When Mr. Miller asked you about your mother not knowing about the fights, you did in fact tell your mother about some of the fights, didn't you?
No, sir, I did not. She overheard me speaking to my little brother about the fights, sir.
And your mother learned of some of the fights from the school, didn't she?
When I was suspended, yes, she did.
And your mother would have known if you had a black eye or bloody nose, she would have known about that, wouldn't you?
Normally, I didn't, sir.
Normally you didn't, sometimes you did, didn't you?
When I got suspended, I did.
Okay, that's all. Oh, do you have any problem, do you have any objection to us getting a copy of your school records?
No, sir.
Do you have any problem with us getting a copy of your counseling records? Since you're so sorry what happened, I'm sure you want to help these people any way you can.
It don't, no, sir, it don't bother me, none.
What about your police records? Do you have any objection to us getting a copy of your complete police records?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all.
You're not talking about access to his federal records.
No, not as federal.
His federal records are not accessible.
Yeah, I understand. That's all.
This will end the deposition. The time is 4:58 p.m. What about
Ladies and gentlemen, just in 1 minute. We want them to take about 5 minutes to get these boys and get out of the building.
dark and twisty inside.